It's John Black, Super Chemist. This video, you can see the title. It's basically talking about is UK going to be taken over by the Muslims, you know, the radical ones, because they keep opening up their border to everyone and anyone.
Vice President J.D. Vance said at the National Conservative Conference, at which I also spoke in the summer here in DC, that the UK was going to be the first Islamist nation with nuclear weapons.
I was talking with...
Keep in mind, the Muslims over there in the UK, right? They let a lot more than we did. They're taking over, you know, taking all this businesses and stuff. They force them to take down their signs if they are slightly offended about anything, even if it's not offensive. You know what I mean? They just start naming stuff, and then they don't allow them to do any Christian stuff. Anytime there's some kind of Christian activity that's going on, they'll all go and bust it all up and tell them to, you know, get out of here. This is Islamophobia or whatever is phobia, Islamophobia or whatever they call it. You know, and they'll just yeah, they're just basically taking over the UK, man. I mean, obviously they 20 years from now, yeah, this is a reality.
I don't think he was entirely joking. Is it an impossibility that 20 years from now it will be the UK, not China or Russia, that will emerge as the greatest strategic threat to the USA?
I was talking with a friend recently, and we were talking about, you know, one of the big dangers in the world, of course, is nuclear proliferation, though, of course, the Biden administration doesn't care about it. And I was talking about, you know, what is the first truly Islamist country that will get a nuclear weapon? And we were like, maybe it's Iran, you know, maybe Pakistan already kind of counts. And then we sort of finally decided maybe it's actually the UK, since Labour just took over.
Born out of a broken relationship and weak leadership. What happens if the UK falls into the hands of Muslim fundamentalism? Our legal system gets substituted by Sharia law, and our nuclear capabilities vest in a regime not dissimilar to that of Iran today.
Keep in mind, whatever's happening in Germany is going to be happening a few months later, and, you know, going more east, and then a few months later, more east, and then, you know, a year later it's in the UK, it's in the Australia, then a year later it's in the United States, Canada, Mexico. Okay, so this is happening. They don't have a Trump over there to stop it.
If immigration, non-stop immigration, was the way to create wealth and prosperity and lower home prices, then London would be doing great. And I got to tell you, I was in London last year, and it's not doing so good.
Mass migration is an existential threat to the way of life in our country and to Western civilization. And the public, be it in the US or in the UK, have voted time and time again to stop it. However, there is some hope. The tide of this war has turned. As Churchill said, this is not the end. This is not even the beginning of the end. Perhaps it is the end of the beginning. Thanks to Trump, free speech, for all its faults, is in the ascendancy. The speed at which DEI and woke institutional policies are crumbling is accelerating, and the malfeasance of government and the mendacity of the administrative state are being exposed with frequent regularity. The prevailing consensus of how multiculturalism was nothing but a benefit is unraveling at pace along with many far-left ideologies. Progressive thinking is losing. It's losing with the young, it's losing with the old, it's losing with blue and white-collar workers alike, and instead is being forced to take cover in the liberal enclaves of Islington and San Francisco, where they weep at the fall of Justin Trudeau, Starmer's plummeting popularity, and the defeat of Kamala Harris. The re-election of Donald Trump by the American people heralds the potential that this war is winnable. Key questions will emerge. Will this inspire citizens in other nations stuck in this political ideology of the far left to follow suit? More importantly, what will happen in the West if it does not? What will happen if democracy is indeed thwarted by the existing political class? Vice President J.D. Vance said at the National Conservative Conference, at which I also spoke in the summer here in DC, that the UK was going to be the first Islamist nation with nuclear weapons. I don't think he was entirely joking. Is it an impossibility that 20 years from now, it will be the UK, not China or Russia, that will emerge as the greatest strategic threat to the USA, born out of a broken relationship and weak leadership?
Yeah, it will be if they do not close their border and stop letting, they got to stop letting these radical Muslims come into their country without even vetting them. See, that's what people don't understand. They think they're going to go to another country when it gets too bad. All the first world countries are doing the same thing, okay? You're not going to move anywhere.
What happens if the UK falls into the hands of Muslim fundamentalism? Our legal system gets substituted by Sharia law, and our nuclear capabilities vest in a regime not dissimilar to that of Iran today. Regardless of whether one thinks this is a realistic outcome, which I do not, should we not have the courage to ask these questions and look at where our country is heading? But now, thankfully, the tide is beginning to turn towards freedom. If the freedom revival fails in the USA, we all lose, and the loss would be irrevocable. Technology, digital IDs, controllable digital currencies, the absolute power of global institutions all paint a dark tapestry of perpetual servitude for the people. Sprinkle in robots and artificial intelligence, jobs become redundant, and people have no purpose. And falling birth rates around the world, shrinking of the world's population, and we're very close to a ruling class deciding that the masses are indeed superfluous, a drain on precious resources and a cancer on the planet's ecology, with the WEF and the Davos elite's desire to see population reduction becoming a reality. If the USA wins, we will once again have freedom, but the US needs its allies. It needs you, it needs us. It may not have Starmer and his woke socialists in the cabinet, but he does have a majority of British public opinion on his side. We must find the courage to shout enough is enough and act differently for our communities and our elections, because only then will we have freedom. Freedom is getting up early in the morning and working hard for you and your family without being molested by oversized bureaucratic government. Freedom is the land that we farm, the schooling of our children, and the freedom to walk our streets in safety. Without it, we are mere chattel slaves, and that is not a world I will ever capitulate to. So, let freedom ring. From every state, every city, every village, and every hamlet. Let freedom ring.
And I had a conversation with an English friend earlier today, and one of the things that's very obvious is that all over the Western world, in Germany, in the UK, in place after place after place, populations keep on telling their leadership that they want less immigration, and their leadership keeps on refusing to listen to them. But this is like a fundamental broken translation function in our sacred democracy that our elites don't seem to care about. And why don't our elites seem to care about it? Well, number one, they really benefit from the cheap labor, okay? Number two, they actually don't really like the people who make up the domestic populations of their own country. It's one of the things that we consistently find from the UK elites to certainly the American elites, is they seem to really not like their own fellow citizens, even though the wars that they want are going to be, of course, fought by the people in the heartland and not by the people who are walking down the streets of Washington, D.C. But I digress, and I apologize for that. But
what's the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth? In February, the online news organisation Middle East Eye ran this op-ed written by a columnist headlined, "Why British Media is Rife with Anti-Muslim Conspiracy Theories." In the content of the article, it read, "Other tropes long since disproven are casually thrown around, a frequent one being that Sharia law operates across large parts of the UK. It is not uncommon to watch a GB news show about any topic and find a panellist or presenter singling out Muslims." That was in February. Today, in the Times, we had this revealing article headlined, "How the UK became the Western capital for Sharia courts." It read, "The number of Sharia courts, also known as councils, in Britain has grown to 85 since they first began operating in the country in 1982. It went on. An investigation by the Times also discovered that polygamy is so normalised that an app for Muslims in England and Wales to create an Islamic will has a drop-down menu for men to say how many wives they have. That's between 1 and 4 options there, by the way. The app, approved by a Sharia court, gives daughters half as much inheritance as sons. The article went on. About 100,000 Islamic marriages are believed to have been conducted in Britain, many of which are not officially registered with the civil authorities. One woman was distressed when an elder suggested she should enter into a religiously sanctioned pleasure marriage, which allows couples to have sex and then part. Right, well, there's your multiculturalism. So how did Middle East Eye respond today to this investigation? And remember, they recently said the suggestion of Sharia law in the UK was an anti-Muslim conspiracy theory. Well, they wrote, these courts, of which there are currently 85 in the UK, offer religious advice on inheritance, wills and other aspects of Islamic personal law. They are unofficial bodies with no legal standing or enforcement powers, nor do they have jurisdiction over financial issues, and operate instead as advisory councils.
Trust me, they have enforcement, okay? When you're inside one of these communities, yeah, they have police. They come to your house, and they, you know, that it wasn't at the beginning, but now they have so many Muslims there. The communities of Muslims are so giant, they feel like they can do anything they want, right? See, it's not about them coming here and trying to, this is the UK, but same thing. It's not about them coming here and, you know, trying to assimilate, trying to be a UK citizen or an American citizen or whatever. You know, it's about them coming here and then getting more and more and more people until they have enough to say, hey, we're the majority. We want, and then think about it, when 1/3 of the country is Muslim, you know what I mean? They're going to have Sharia law all over the place, right? Who's going to stop them at that point? Who's going to stop? And then they're going to start getting into the government. It's crazy.
Okay, so there we go. We've gone from Sharia doesn't operate in the UK to, well, yes, actually they do, but they're unofficial bodies. Got it. So I ask again, what's the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth? The answer, in this case at least, is about 10 months. Let's get Matthew Larser. Should Sharia courts be banned in the UK?
Yes.
Sean Bailey.
Yes.
Suzanne?
Tricky one.
No, stop.
You're divided, aren't you?
Yeah, I am
What's the
slightly
issue?
divided.
How's it tricky? You can't. It's like the mafia having their own courts and stuff. You can't have some random people on the street deciding that they're going to set up another court system that doesn't have anyone to look over them. It's not. You know. Come on, man.
So, in principle, I think they're absolutely wrong. Yes, 100%. There should be one law for all, and everybody should be subject to the same law. But the fact is, these Sharia courts are still subject to British law, English law, Scottish law, whichever it might be. They cannot override that, and I think it's a mistake to think that they can operate as an independent legal system. They don't. I mean, what Middle East Eye said really is right. They are councils. That's a better phrase for them rather than courts.
Yeah, but they're not.
Yes, I think they're fundamentally wrong.
But they're not
yes,
called
I
councils.
think they're particularly.
I'm sorry.
They're not. They're particularly
Sorry,
oppressive
but
to women.
within any...
Okay, answer me this one before you go any further then, Sean. But you also have courts operating like this in the Jewish religion. You have the so-called Beth Din, which does much the same function as the Sharia courts. Now, I don't hear any great...
It's like 10 Jews. I've already gone over this, man. There's only 16 million Jews on the whole entire planet. Half of them are in the United States and half are in Israel. And then they're sprinkled around all over the place, you know what I mean? Just a little bit, though. How many people are in the UK, man? If half of them are here in the United States and half are in Israel, what's left over, really? You know what I mean? Yeah. And then it's only going to be a small portion of those Jewish people that are crazy nut jobs that want to have these private courts of their own, you know what I mean, like a mafia. There's only a very tiny... So the Jewish population in the UK compared to the Muslims is like nothing. And then you only take a small portion of that nothing. Now you have nothing of nothing of how many Jews. This is a stupid argument about this Jew. They're always with the Jews.